As hardship intensifies in Cameroon, dark clouds continue to hover over increasing prices of fuel and food. As Yaoundé city dwellers queue up in filling stations, buyers no longer visit the fruit market in Loum in the Mongo division of the littoral region of Cameroon. Ladies and gentlemen, thanks for getting to Equinoxe, where you shall know everything happening in and out of Cameroon. Thanks for making the right choice. You're on to the Primetime Newscast with live from Douala, Cameroon. Dark clouds hover over Cameroon with rising food and fuel prices. Buyers no longer visit the fruit market in the town of Loum in the Mongo division of the littoral region of Cameroon because of increased prices, and traders are now complaining. They say that they are at the verge of abandoning business in that part of the Mongo division of the littoral region. They no longer see buyers. Buyers on their part questioned by Equinoxe television and radio why they no longer visit the market, getting traders to abandon the business. They say that the prices are just unbearable. This is an example of just how increased prices are frustrating economic activities in different parts of Cameroon. We take the case of Loum with Immaculate Fogo in the following report.
Heaps of pineapples displayed at the Carrefour Tombel market in Loum, Mongo division. But buyers are absent. Despite investing time and money in the pineapple sector, traders are finding it hard to make ends meet. The few persons interested in the fruit buy it at very low prices. Fertilizers are now very expensive, but we still sell the pineapples very cheap. We spend more, but end up having less. How are we going to send our children to school during the next academic year? According to the traders, the situation is aggravated by the ongoing war in the northwest and southwest regions. Our customers from Bamenda, Boya, Limbe have all abandoned the activity because of the war. The few who come here are from Douala, and when they come, they buy it at very cheap rates because they notice that the pineapples are in abundance. Before the crisis, we used to sell this pineapple for 500 francs. Now we sell it for 250 francs, but there are still no buyers. Despite all the hurdles faced by farmers in plantations when the increase of farm inputs coupled with the bad state of farm-to-market roads, they are still obliged to sell at very cheap rates, resulting to enormous losses. The farmers are expecting assistance from the state so as to avoid them from quitting the activity in future.
Rising food prices in Cameroon, but it is not only about food prices. There is also the threat of social peace with the rise in fuel prices in the city of Yaoundé. Yaoundé city dwellers are seen on amateur cameras queuing to get fuel in filling stations, and the situation has hampered smooth circulation and economic activities in the city of Yaoundé. The images seen were taken in parts of the city yesterday, and most Yaoundé city dwellers say that they were just unable to go out of their homes yesterday because of the inability to get their vehicles fueled. And the few filling stations with fuel in Yaoundé are seen with queues of vehicles and some individuals holding containers only to get petroleum products for different uses in the city of Yaoundé. And it is not only about vehicle owners, it is a situation that is also affecting households and individuals, especially those who use not only fuel, petrol, but kerosene for other purposes. They are also seen on lines in different parts of the city of Yaoundé, queuing up just to get the liquid that has become a precious liquid in the city of Yaoundé. The scarcity has not been explained by officials in charge of petroleum products in Cameroon, and the situation, reports say, that is highly felt by those in the political capital city of Cameroon, Yaoundé. Yes, it is coming after the observation was made, on diesel oil several weeks ago in the city of Yaoundé. A reporter, Malak Glory, a few days ago took interest on just what drivers go through in Yaoundé to get diesel oil. Her report.
The scarcity of diesel fuel has created tension in the air as transporters from far and near queue up to negotiate for some liters. At the Carrefour Régie filling station, customers' order is limited due to the shortage in supply. I was told I could get diesel fuel here, but now when I got here, you are being served a particular quantity. Yesterday was 15,000, today is 10,000, and this is the only place in town where you can get diesel fuel. We made a stop at 10 other filling stations in different neighborhoods of the town, but they were out of stock.
Bonjour, il y a du gasoil? Pas du tout. Bonjour.
According to the managers of these filling stations, the situation is not strange. We received 5,000 supply of fuel Thursday evening. By Friday, everything was finished. And some traveling agencies, the buses are on standby and passengers are furious. However, strategies have been developed to better manage their present condition. We asked drivers leaving Fumban to buy fuel on their way back to Yaoundé, while others leaving Yaoundé are forced to buy fuel at Bafia. Transporters syndicate are calling on the government authorities to intervene in order to avoid the worst in the future.
Des centaines de véhicules sont garés.
Hundreds of vehicles are parked in different towns in Cameroon. There is a serious problem and the government needs to take it into consideration in order to ameliorate the situation. Meanwhile, the National Petroleum Depot was contacted in order to explain the reason behind the scarcity. Through a phone call, the Director of Communication says the situation is under control, but the cause of the scarcity remains unknown.
Glory Mala reporting on the diesel oil scarcity in Yaoundé. I told you before her report that the situation is not only affecting vehicle owners but also households in the city of Yaoundé. They are seen piling up on filling stations with containers and just to buy fuel. In most cases, unavailable in several neighborhoods of the city. It's not been explained by officials in charge of petroleum products and those in charge of refining, as well as those in charge of the distribution of petroleum products in Cameroon. We are close on the story. Our reporters in Yaoundé went today to meet officials, and the explanations will be brought to you subsequently, even before the end of this newscast. But time for us to talk security and insecurity in the city of Douala and the other cities within the 2nd Combined Military Region in Cameroon. The Gendarmerie Commander of the 2nd Combined Military Region was commissioned and charged to fight out insecurity in Douala, the southwest region of Cameroon. He was given the baton of command in an installation ceremony that took place in Douala. Remember that General Divine Equinoxe moves in from the northwest region of Cameroon, where he jointly commanded the 5th Combined Military Region. Malak Glory once again.
General Equinoxe Divine Noke is the newly installed commander of the 2nd Gendarmerie Region. He was installed in Douala Tuesday, July 19, 2022.
General de Brigade Equinoxe Divine Noke.
He is appointed at a time when the level of high crime wave in the littoral region is on the rise. For this reason, the Minister of Defense, while presiding over the ceremony, urged the general to fight the societal ill in the city of Douala and the region as a whole. You are responsible of the organization and the execution of the laws at the level of the gendarmerie. Bring discipline and fight against high criminality. Coming from the Feed Combined Military Region with headquarters in Bamenda, the restive northwest region of Cameroon, the 64-year-old general comes to replace General Tonge Elias. Equinoxe Divine has worked in Douala before, and with his experience and his understanding of the city, expectations are high from both the authorities and the general public.
Yes, ladies and gentlemen, remember that on Talking Point today, our guest is connected from the United States of America, and we shall be talking France-Afrique, the visit of the French president, or the announced visit of the French president to Cameroon and some African countries. But also, he will be commenting on what are to subtract from the Anglophone crisis with the taking of Field Marshal. But interestingly, his comments and reactions on what Cameroon is currently facing, many are qualified as dark clouds hovering over Cameroon with rising fuel and food prices. But before we get to our guest, we talk sports. First, the Morocco and South Africa, who've intensified preparations ahead of the confrontations at the Women's Africa Cup of Nations final this weekend in the Northern African country of Morocco. The bronze medal will be battled for by Nigeria and Zimbabwe ahead of the last, or Zambia and not Zimbabwe, ahead of the last 4 matches of the Women's Africa Cup of Nations. Smart Jikangebe comes back to the statistics of the competition from day one.
For the 3rd time since the inception of the Women's Africa Cup of Nations, a new name will be written on the trophy, different from the usual Nigeria. It will be a battle between host Morocco and Bayana ladies of South Africa. 26 matches have been played this far in the tournament, which has just 4 matches left for it to come to an end. In the 26 matches played, 59 goals have been scored with an average of 2.7 goals scored per match. The battle for the golden boot of the tournament is between Moroccan playmaker Ghislaine Chebak and Super Falcons skipper Rashidat Ajibade, who will unfortunately miss the 3rd place match against Zambia due to the red card she received in her last game. The women in black have also been active on the pitch. A total of 88 yellow cards have been shown to players up to this stage of the competition. At the level of the quarterfinal, 17 yellow cards were shown, with Botswana having the most yellow cards, 4, while during the repechage games, a total of 7 yellow cards were given, and at the semi-finals, 5 yellow cards came out from the pockets of the women in black to the players. Red cards were also difficult to find in the competition, but before the final 4 matches of the competition, a total of 7 red cards have been given to players by the referees. At the quarterfinal, no red card was shown, while during the repechage matches, Cameroon got the only red cards of the game that was shown to Aretoya Kome, and at the semi-finals, it was the Super Falcons who suffered most, with Rashidat Ajibade and Ayinde who were shown red cards. Amongst the 4 teams left in the competition, only South Africa seems to be going home with the Fair Play Trophy for the most disciplined team, as the girls of Coach Desiree Ellis have recorded just 2 yellow cards in 5 matches played and no red cards.
And the CAF Award in Rabat, Morocco this weekend, Cameroon will be represented in 2 different categories, notably the best female player of the African continent and the best national men's team for the African continent, as the Confederation of African Football CAF will be awarding its meritorious players within the continent. As far as the traditional CAF award is concerned, it should be recovered. Cameroon missed out on the final shortlist of the best men's player of the year, with the elimination of Vincent Abubakar, Karl Toko Ekambi and others who were nominated in that category. Smart Njikangebe once again.
After staying in the cold for close to 2 years, the best players in both the men and women categories, clubs, coaches and national teams will be rewarded for their performance this Thursday as the CAF Award ceremony returns to the limelight. Cameroon will be represented at the CAF Awards by Ajara Shut Njoya, who is amongst the players shortlisted for the Best Women Player of the Year award. Though it will all depend on the choices of the voters, Ajara Shut Njoya will have stiff oppositions as she faces four-time winner Asisat Oshola of Nigeria, who is in quest for her fifth title, and newcomer in the category, Zambia's Grace Chanda. When CAF published the first list, Cameroon had 4 players nominated, amongst them Gabriela Budiongene, Jeanette Yango and Rose Bella, who were eliminated along the line. Apart from the Best Women Player of the Year, luck might also fall on the country of Samuel Eto'o, which has been shortlisted for the Best National Team of the Year award. Even though Cameroon didn't win any major continental trophy, maybe their third place finish at the Africa Cup of Nations, in which they organize, will be a better argument. But in front of Cameroon for the Best Men's National Team of the Year award are defending champions of the Africa Cup of Nations, Senegal, and record AFCON trophy holder, Egypt, in contention for the award. It's rather unfortunate that even though Cameroon had 3 players, Andre Frank Zamboangisa, Karl Toko Ekambi and Vincent Aboubakar nominated for the Men's Best Player award, with Vincent Aboubakar retained in the final 5, the Best Player of the Year won't be from Cameroon, as the final shortlist of 3 has 2 Senegalese, Sadio Mane and Edouard Mendy, alongside Egyptian tactician Mohamed Salah, who were retained for the award. The category of the Best Women's Team of the Year wasn't published by CAF because no major women's competition took place during the period under review. CAF says they will use the Women's Africa Cup of Nations, still ongoing, to decide the winners on July 23rd, 2022 during the finale of the competition. CAF will also reward the Best Goal of the Year, club, coach, young player and interclub player during the award ceremony that will take place in Rabat, Morocco.
Thanks, ladies and gentlemen. That was the first part of news. Coming up is Talking Points, still with Equinoxe Television. Our guest tonight is joining us from New York in the United States of America. We are receiving Barrister Anene Bawi, receiving who is in New York, as I indicated, and also attorney and counselor at law. He is also an author of the book, The Land We Leave Behind. Barrister, thanks for accepting our invitation all the way from the United States of America.
Thank you so much, Mr. Fome. It's always a real pleasure coming on your platform, Equinoxe TV, and hopefully we get to drill into some nice issues and let the people know exactly where we stand on certain issues and legal aspects of what Cameroon is. Thank you so much.
Barrister, as a keen observer of African politics, you at the level of Cameroon, you must have learned about the killing of Field Marshal within the context of the armed conflict rocking the northwest and southwest in the speaking regions of Cameroon. What are the things you noticed unusual about the announcement and everything that surrounded the Field Marshal affair?
Yes, sir. I did follow I do follow Cameroon politics. You know, I'm indigenous from Cameroon, so it's something that we all follow about the politics of where we come from, the land we come from, so we can never leave it behind. So I learned of the death of Mr. Lekiake, I think that's what his name is, Mr. Oliver, aka Field Marshal, and what comes to me is that we cannot solve our problems with the same thinking we used when we created them. If you look at that particular guy who died, who was killed, who was ambushed and killed, he was part of the Cameroon military from the best of my recollection and knowledge. He was trained by the Cameroon military, and he turned against them at some point in his life. So if he was on active duty, that would have been a mutiny, but he was not. He actually left and decided to join forces against the Cameroon government, the same system that brought him up. If you get to that point in your life, in the chronicle of your history, and some things like that start happening.
Hello, Barrister. Yeah, unfortunately, you're saying that you worried that we are spending time solving some of the problems we created, and which will not help Cameroon as a country advance, meaning that resources are used also to solve problems that should not have even existed in the first place. Barrister, we had some technical challenges there. Can you write on, please?
Oh, yes. What I was saying is you cannot solve our problems with the same thinking that we used to when we created them in the first place. And when I was talking about Mr. Oliver, I think that's his name, and the field marshal, the way he was styled in Cameroon, you know, he was somebody who was built by the military. He was a former soldier who decided to turn against the same system that built him up. So what I was saying is the one thing that's more dangerous than ignorance is arrogance. The arrogance that we cannot accept our faults and look for a pertinent solution that can bring peace to a land that we all cherish. If this guy decided to turn the guns against the same system that trained him, then there is something inherently wrong. He might be one that decided to pick the guns against Cameroon, but there are many people in Cameroon, civilians, people inside the military, who feel exactly the way he felt. And gunning that guy down or killing him does not really erase the ideology that's actually pushed him to become a soldier against the system. You know, this is an ideological warfare. This is not something that you can use guns to silence. You would fight and kill, but you would not kill the idea. It will still be there, because this thing, you have to go to the root causes of the issue about between the Southern Cameroons and the Republic of Cameroon, the way they came together in 1961. We know the history, we know all this stuff. But if you never come back to the root causes of the problems, which the current government actually knows, the current president actually knows exactly what the root causes are, but he cannot really deliver because he's under the payroll of not the African people, not the people of the Cameroons, but the payroll of someone else. And that's exactly what's happening in the English-speaking part of Cameroon and the French-speaking part of Cameroon. I'm talking about the government, not the people.
And Barrister, you said there was a problem that got him to the other side. We should be focused on problems that exist, and one of such today is this rising food and fuel prices that gets people manifesting in different forms. Do you also see that as a looming danger? Newspapers today in Cameroon say dark clouds hovering over Cameroon with rising food and fuel prices. Do you see dark clouds?
I think there are dark clouds hovering over the country following the newspaper captions. It's a dark cloud that's been lingering for decades. The only thing that's different is because they keep churning the same people and trying to find a different solution to the same problems that existed. What's happening in Cameroon right now, it's a stagflation, and a stagflation is high inflation combined with unemployment and a stagnant demand. That's what it is. And there is the war again in Europe. It's a contributing factor, but we cannot blame it on that particular war. What I heard your report about a lady talking about not being able to get supply from the people from the other part of Cameroon that's in a war right now, and that's what it is. If they cannot have supply, then you have limited resources. You have limited amount of money chasing very few resources, and that gets to the point of inflation. And if there is inflation marked with high unemployment, that's stagflation. That's what's going on there. That's why filling stations cannot even get gas into their cars, because, you know, we get into that resource curse that other African countries have gone into. You have most of the resources, but you are not able to benefit from those, because it really surprises me that a country like Cameroon should be not be able to, fuel the cars on the streets. Africa has 17% of the world's population, 9% of the world's oil, 90% of platinum, and about 75% of the world cotton. But if you look at Africa, they have 54 countries, but no vote at the world stage. That's what you're looking at. It's a system that has been pegged against the African, and unfortunately, we have African leaders who are pegging their economies towards those of the West, especially if you talk about Cameroon, pegging it to the French treasury, and the opulent minority in Cameroon are those that are the beneficiary, and every other person is suffering. I bet you there are people with much more, fuel guzzling cars in Cameroon that they are able to fuel those cars and they can run around. It is the average individual in Cameroon that's suffering. And that's what we're looking at, and that's where we are. And that's that cloud that's hovering over Cameroon. And until we can overhaul the system, there is absolutely nowhere you can move before. You can go ahead. The French president will be coming to Cameroon. He's not coming to do anything. He is coming to repeat the same of all. We will talk about that. He's coming to repeat the same of all because Cameroon has never had any sovereignty since it had its quasi-independence in 1960 and in 1961 with the Southern Cameroons joining the queue.
Yeah, Barrister, with this, do you see our Cameroonians in the days ahead with things remaining the way they are? Do you see Cameroonians manifesting their frustrations in a different way from what we have today? People lamenting in their houses, in the comfort of their homes, but actually expressing anger. Do you see the forms of manifestations vis-a-vis what they're facing changing as days go by?
Well, again, you can stifle dissent up to a certain extent. At some point, it will come out. If you look at what's happening in Sri Lanka, if they told these people that at some point they would leave power and leave it not on their terms or on the terms of the people, they would never accept it. I heard also in your report, they're going around installing military leaders all over Cameroon, moving them, from, different areas to other areas and telling them that they execute the laws. Under the constitution of a real democracy, the executive, which is the president going down to people that he devolves power to, execute the law, not the gendarmes, not the military people. That is not what they do. The gendarmes, the military, they are supposed to be fighting wars against foreign aggressors. A mutiny is not necessarily something that is done by a soldier. People can go onto a peaceful and passive protest. That's also a mutiny against legal authority. So if you sit in the quiet of your home and you are in pain, I look at that as a surplusage, because you should get out there, coalesce yourself into a group and manifest against the same government that's oppressing you, because they don't feel the pain you feel.
But so now, Barrister.
Yes, sir.
Now, all right, now, Barrister, now, technically, do we see this situation, the rising prices of food and fuel, as a consequence of what is happening out of Cameroon? Some linking most of the increase in prices to the war in Ukraine, or it's a problem that is internal, maybe provoked by the regime? Because you talked about the regime in your last phrases.
Well, it's a contributory factor of what's happening outside of Cameroon, but it is not the main factor, because if we had worked our economies, again, I go back to that lady who said they cannot get supplies from the people from the southern Cameroons, especially from the northern part of the southern Cameroons, which is Bamenda and all those places. I happen to come from Santa, where I know that when the planting season or the harvesting season, trucks upon trucks, they line up there and they're taking cargo from Santa directly to Gabon. Those things have stopped. That is the failed economic policies that by a few greedy individuals, where they decided to bring war as a solution to a social and political problem, or an ideological problem. It is not war. You would never. That's what. So if you're talking about the war in Ukraine, yes, it's contributory, but we should build our economies build our agricultural societies in such a way that they can self-sustain one another without foreign importation of goods and services. If you ask me, you import coffee. What happened to the coffee estates in Santa that we grew up? There was a manufacturing center there with coffee being imported, from Cameroon via that particular city. If that city was still existing and producing coffee, we would not be importing. That is self-sustainability, and other industries would have evolved around that particular edifice, and that's development. But you kill all these things for political ideology and favoritism. If you look at all the other stuff that has happened, that's the basis of our economic slowdown. And so you cannot blame it on Ukraine or Europe. We have the manpower, we have the right set of people, but the only thing is those that have arrogated themselves upon the use of power, they've decided to use it against the people for their own personal benefit and the benefit of their paymaster.
Now, with all these problems and analyzing contributing factors to internal and external problems, do you think that they are also in some ways linked to the external choices made by Cameroon in terms of diplomatic relations and ties and economic negotiations, especially with the former colonial master France? I say this because recently we had the French ambassador to Cameroon decrying what he qualified as the green anti-French sentiment in Cameroon.
Well, I think it's even late for the anti-French sentiment in Cameroon. If it has not burgeoned, it should have burgeoned a long time ago. If he's only seeing that, it is because he has always crafted the policies of Cameroon to favor his country. So he should not be thinking that anti-French sentiment in Cameroon, it's only coming up right now. It's something that has been existing. They have failed in Africa. They've failed because of their economic policies. The CEMAC that they've created, the OHADA law that they've implemented right there, it is all a failure. It's a farce. It's something that has, because more Cameroonians now, the younger generation, they are able to decipher some of this injustice that the French have meted on the people. And they are able to, manifest their discontent. So if the French ambassador is saying that there is an anti-French sentiment in the country, it is all over Africa. It is not just in the Cameroons, because their policies have never been geared towards a well-meaning outcome. Because if you look at in 2007, when Nicolas Sarkozy went to the Sheikh Anta Diop University in France, he said Africa never actually was not actually meant for development. What was that? That was pure racism. That was pure, it was very derogatory, because when he said those words, he was telling you that the purpose of France, which is what he also said, was to come and civilize Africa, and they have failed because Africans cannot really take up the cue and move from there. It was very insulting. And then the French ambassador to Cameroon is telling Cameroonians that they're having an anti-French mentality. What if you craft laws and impose on the people? What do you expect of them? They cannot. OHADA is not debated in Cameroonian parliament. That law was written by outside countries and brought into Cameroon. So what do you expect the people to do? To sit down on their laurels and listen to you, Mr. Ambassador? It is not right. When you, at some point, we are a global village. If you're constructing your laws, look at the internal constitutions of the people and tailor the laws to their constitutions, not to the constitutions of your separate states. Because again, if you look at Cameroon, the constitution of Cameroon, if there is a conflict between a foreign agreement, a foreign treaty that Cameroon has signed, guess what? That treaty or that law supersedes your internal law that's been debated by your parliamentarians and senators. So you have no say. So in OHADA, there is article, I have the book, between article 46 to 51, it gives absolute priority to that treaty. So in case there is any conflict, you forget about it. Article 62, and it says this treaty shall be enforced indefinitely. So it goes beyond your constitution. So it goes beyond your country. So if all these failures are there, it is because of the economic policies that we've imbibed or got in from foreign actors who are your paymasters, who are the paymasters of the people in power.
So do we have chances that Emmanuel Macron coming to Cameroon might just be to lose this, what you qualify as the tight grip on Cameroon and the rest of Africa?
You have to understand also that with the war in Ukraine, you know, there is going to be a shift in the balance of powers, the way the world geopolitical structure now is going to be. Because the world will never be the same again after this war in Ukraine, because another European power has attacked another European power. You're looking at something that's analogous to the Second or the First World War, where Europeans chopped up themselves, millions and millions died, then we the Africans are suffering. Macron is only coming to re-strategize and see how he can get foil from the Cameroons and re-peg Cameroon to the French treasury again with France-Afrique. Because again, unfortunately, the term France-Afrique was coined by an African, Mr. President Houphouët-Boigny, which was France-Afrique. He coined that in the late 50s, and it devolved from his theorem about Africa and France from Rassemblement Démocratique du Peuple Africain.
Exactly.
That was his movement. Yes, and that was his movement. And the president of your country decided, when he came to power, switch the CNU, the Cameroon National Union Party, he switched it, he changed it to Rassemblement Démocratique du Peuple Camerounais, styling it to what Houphouët-Boigny did. You know, so bringing back the French again into your society. So it is no accident that Mr. Macron is coming to Cameroon, you know, because he knows that Mr. Biya, your president, is someone who would grant him, a red carpet treatment in Cameroon on the backs of the suffering people in the villages and all the different tribes in Cameroon. And there are these are things that, in this particular century, this particular time in the history of Africa, we should not be taking these things. Because if you look at the institutions that have been built in Cameroon, if you look at, let's take for example the school that the biggest school or the best school in Cameroon called Enem. That school is structured in order to impose all the qualities of neo-colonialism on Africans, on Cameroonians, because they are divisional officers that are spread out and populate them all over the territory. Most of your traditional rulers they are subservient to those people, and those people are installed by the military. So that's a military state. Cameroon is a military state, and that's what it is, and that's why the country is going down. They should not blame it that the Anglophones or the English-speaking part of Cameroon, they've caused a war. No, they did not cause a war. Cameroon brought a war onto its own people or onto those people. So if you're calling them separate, you can always, tag that label and do what you want to do and call them separatists. They are not separatists.
But he's also coming at a time when there are growing debates on who takes over eventually from President Biya, who currently has his 7 years mandate on course. And of course, elections expected in Cameroon in 2025. But on the proposed agenda, his itinerary we've seen circulated on social media in Cameroon. There is a space where he is expected to meet with some leaders of the opposition. Do you also see this as a blunder or an advantage on the political scene?
Well, again, I am not that person who dispels international cooperation with foreign countries and foreign economies, but if you're doing that, at a disadvantage, at the comparative disadvantage of your own people, that's where I see it goes wrong. Mr. Macron coming at the eve of another election coming in, realizing that the other guy, the current leader, might be a little bit weaker in terms of, his physical and mental strength. Of course, age is a factor right there. Trying to see if they can shift or get somebody who can replace him. That's not, you cannot meddle into the internal politics of a person's country, because that's a sovereign state. Define sovereignty the way you want to define it, but I think sovereignty is a collective authority endowed onto the people by its people. I know under international law, where there is a global village, where there is, sovereign state interact with each other in order to carry on and carry on diplomatic missions and economic services, but you cannot do that at the expense of a people's sovereignty within their state. So if Mr. Macron is coming to pave the way for a new leader for Cameroon, it is totally wrong. I don't care who becomes the next president of your country, but the thing is, it should be the will of the people, not the will of a political party. And I saw...
Boris, thank you very much, Barrister, for your time.
Always a pleasure. Thank you so much, Mr.
Ladies and gentlemen, we thank you for your keen attention. Still with Equinoxe, interesting programs. Of course, continue. You're going to be having Equinoxe Swap from Yaoundé, Cameroon. The full newscast in the French language comes up at 8 p.m. from Yaoundé. I'll be back here in Douala tomorrow at 6 p.m. for the full newscast in the French language, God willing.